All right, so I'm sure most of you have seen a tractor hard at work, right? Maybe you've been kind of awestruck by how big and powerful they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
But have you ever thought about what lets a tractor do all that work? Like the actual invention behind all that power.
It's funny how we often overlook those things.
Right. And that's why today we're going to do a deep dive into one of those overlooked but total game changers.
Yeah.
The three-point tractor hitch.
Yeah, the three-point hitch.
Not just a bunch of metal,
Oh,
This thing revolutionized farming. It's
yeah.
incredible. And we're going to figure out exactly how it did that.
Sounds good.
But first, we got to step back in time a bit to the early 1900s, before tractors were everywhere.
Right. Well, we actually have this amazing farmer's memoir from back then, and it really paints a picture of what life was like.
Oh, yeah, I was looking at that. What's the story? So this farmer talks about how he and his brothers spent every single day out in the fields.
Plowing with horses.
Plowing with horses. Can you imagine that?
Backbreaking labor.
Backbreaking labor, right? Waking up before sunrise. And all for what? A tiny fraction of what a modern farm can produce.
Really puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
It really does. It's hard to even fathom that kind of life these days.
Absolutely, but it really highlights the magnitude of the changes that were coming.
Huge changes.
And right at the heart of it all was this guy named Harry Ferguson.
Now, Harry wasn't satisfied with just inventing the three-point hitch.
Oh no, he had a vision.
He saw the bigger picture, how this simple system could completely change farming practices.
A true visionary.
Yeah.
And you know what? His very first production tractor.
The one in 1936.
Yep, that one.
Yeah.
It had the three-point hitch and his draft control system. It was a turning point.
Okay, so enough history. Let's actually get into the nuts and bolts of this thing.
All right, let's do it.
We've got some close-up images of a three-point hitch here so we can really see what's going on. Where do we even begin with something like this?
Well, you know what? The beauty of it is, in its simplicity, you've got three main parts. The top link, the lower lifting arms, and then a really clever way to attach implements.
Okay, so let's start with the cop link. That's the anchor for the implement, right? But what's interesting is that it's usually not powered by the tractor's hydraulics.
Right, good catch.
So why is that?
Well, it's because the top link's main job is adjusting the angle of the implement. And most of the time, you don't need hydraulics for that, So they kept it simple but effective.
Smart. Okay, what about those two massive arms on the bottom? Those lower lifting arms.
Yeah,
They look like they could lift a car.
they're definitely strong. Those are what actually do the lifting, and they're hydraulically controlled.
I
So
see.
just think about it. Instead of manually wrestling these heavy implements, farmers could just use a lever. It's a back saver.
Wow.
And then for fine tuning, there's usually a manual crank too. So you've got both power and precision.
Nice. But how do you actually connect those implements to the arms?
So that's where the ball and pin system comes in.
Ball and pin.
Yeah, so each lower arm has a ball at the end with a hole right through it. And then the implement attaches with these spring-loaded pins. It's really strong, but super easy to use. And you can switch implements quickly.
So imagine you're a farmer. You've got your plow all hooked up, fired up the tractor, and you're ready to go. How does this three-point hitch actually work with the plow?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. The genius isn't just in attaching the implements.
Well-
It's how it actually interacts with them while you're working.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's hear about this genius.
All right, so let's start with draft control. Remember those hydraulic lifting arms? Well, they do a lot more than just lift and lower. They actually sense how much resistance the implement is meeting.
Hold on. So if your plow hits some really tough soil, the hitch knows and adjusts itself.
Exactly. Think of it like cruise control for plowing.
Wow.
Draft control keeps that working depth consistent no matter what the terrain's like. Imagine trying to do that by hand all day.
My arms are already sore just thinking about it.
Right. It freed up farmers from constantly adjusting things manually and made plowing way more efficient.
Okay. I'm starting to see why this was such a big deal. But wait, there's more, right? You said the three-point hitch can also power implements, not just pull them.
That's right, through something called the power takeoff, or PTO.
PTO.
Yeah, it's basically a rotating shaft that's connected to the tractor's engine.
I see.
So when you hook up a PTO-driven implement, that shaft sends power straight from the engine to make it move.
So we've got this system that can attach lift control depth, A&D power, a whole bunch of tools. That's incredible.
And that's where we see the real impact. Remember that farmer from the memoir?
The one breaking his back with those horses.
Yeah, imagine him decades later using a tractor with a three-point hitch.
What a difference.
Night and day. The three-point hitch led to higher yields, way less labor, and it was much safer. It changed everything.
So it wasn't just about plowing, though, right?
Nope, not at all. The three-point hitch isn't a one-trick pony. It opened up so many possibilities. You weren't limited to just a plow anymore.
So what else could you do with it?
Pretty much anything you can imagine. Harrow seeders, ballers, mowers, the list goes on and on.
Wow, from simple plowing to all of that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it gets even better. Farmers started getting really creative. They used the three-point hitch for all sorts of specialized tasks, like digging post holes, clearing brush, even attaching backhoes.
It's amazing to think that one invention led to all of that. It really was a game changer.
Absolutely.
So the three-point hitch basically kicked off this wave of innovation in farm equipment.
You could say that. And what's even crazier is that it didn't stop at the farm. The whole concept is used in construction and landscaping equipment, too.
It's remarkable to think about just how much impact this seemingly simple idea has had on so many industries.
Yeah, it is.
We've covered a lot of ground already. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to take a closer look at how the three-point hitch has evolved and what its impact is on farming today.
Sounds good. You know, it's easy to think about the three-point hitch and just assume it's always been the same. But it's actually evolved quite a bit over time. It's remarkable, really.
Oh, really? Like, what kind of evolution are we talking about? Did they add more points?
Haha, not quite. The core design's pretty much the same, but there have been some big improvements. Like, remember draft control?
Yeah.
Well, those early systems were completely mechanical. They used springs and levers to sense and adjust everything.
Oh, wow. So what's it like now?
Well, these days, modern tractors use electronic sensors and advanced hydraulics for draft control.
Wow.
It's super precise, you know? It makes even finer adjustments to the implement's depth for better performance and efficiency.
So it went from old school mechanics to high-tech electronics.
Exactly. And that's not all. Think about the sheer variety of implements they use with the three-point hitch nowadays. We've come a long way from just plows and harrows.
Oh, yeah. We actually have a source here that mentions some pretty impressive modern implements, like leveling harrows, backhoes, even those giant brush hogs.
It's amazing.
It sounds like you can do anything with a three-point hitch these days.
Pretty much. And it's a testament to how flexible and ingenious that original design was. It can handle all sorts of tasks.
What about the PTO? Has that evolved too?
Oh, absolutely. Modern PTO systems have multiple speeds and configurations so farmers can fine-tune the power for different implements.
I see.
And some even have safety features that automatically disengage the PTO if something gets jammed, you know, to prevent damage.
So it's not just about raw power anymore. It's also about control and safety.
Exactly.
But with all these advancements, how has the three-point hitch really impacted modern farming?
Oh, it's had a huge impact. Think back to that farmer's memoir, the one about the back-breaking labor and tiny yields.
Right.
Well, the three-point hitch turned tractors into these versatile machines that could do so much more.
It's like going from a horse and buggy to a spaceship.
I like that analogy. The three-point hitch has meant bigger yields, fewer workers needed, and it's way safer for farmers. It's a big reason modern farms can produce so much food with so few people.
It's amazing how one invention can change a whole industry like that.
Yes.
But it wasn't just about bigger farms and more crops, right?
It also changed the types of crops farmers could grow and how they grew them. It was a total game changer.
Like what? Can you give us an example?
Sure. Take no-till farming, for instance. It's all about minimizing soil disturbance, right?
Yeah.
Well, no-till farming relies heavily on specialized implements that attach to you, guessed it, the three-point hitch.
Of course.
These implements can plant and control weeds without really messing with the soil.
So the three-point hitch actually helped make agriculture more sustainable.
Exactly. It shows how a simple invention combined with human ingenuity can benefit both farmers and the environment.
That's amazing. We've talked a lot about the practical side of things, but what about the economics?
Yeah.
How did the three-point hitch affect farmers' incomes? Could they actually make more money because of it?
Well, think about it. Before the three-point hitch, farmers were stuck with manual labor or draft animals. They could only cultivate so much land and produce so much.
Right.
But with a tractor and a variety of three-point hitch implements, their productivity just exploded.
So farmers could work more land, grow more crops, and ultimately earn more money, all thanks to the three-point hitch.
Exactly. It was a huge boost for the whole agricultural industry. It let farmers scale up, reduce their labor costs, and improve their standard of living.
It sounds like it helped level the playing field, too,
Yeah.
allowing smaller farms to compete with bigger ones.
That's a good point. It also opened up new opportunities for specialization. Some farmers could focus on specific crops or livestock, while others could provide services like custom harvesting or land preparation, you know. using their three-point hitch implements.
So it created a whole ecosystem of new businesses and services.
Exactly. It made the agricultural economy much more dynamic. And that impact went beyond the farm. It affected equipment manufacturing, transportation, even food processing.
It's really remarkable how one invention can have such a wide-reaching impact.
It is. It shows how interconnected everything is and how even small technological advancements can change society and the economy.
We've covered a lot in this deep dive, from the origins of the three-point hitch to its evolution and its impact on agriculture and beyond.
We have.
Before we wrap things up, what are your final thoughts on the legacy of this invention?
Well, I think the three-point hitch is a perfect example of human ingenuity. It reminds us that even simple inventions can have a huge and lasting impact. It's a story of problem-solving, innovation, and collaboration.
We've really gone deep on this one, haven't we?
Yeah.
The history, the mechanics, how it's evolved, the economic impact. It's amazing what a story the three-point hitch has.
It really is. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think there are some bigger lessons we can learn from all this.
Ooh, like what?
Well, first of all, it shows how powerful simplicity can be.
Mm,
The three-point hitch is a pretty simple concept at its core,
yeah.
but that's exactly what makes it so versatile and adaptable. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones.
It's like less is more for tractors.
Exactly. And the three-point hitch also shows how important standardization is.
All right.
Harry Ferguson didn't just invent the three-point hitch, he pushed for everyone to use the same design.
Which is huge. If every tractor had its own hitch system,
It would have been a mess.
yeah, the impact would have been way smaller.
Totally. It's what allowed that whole ecosystem of implements to develop. It's like, imagine a smartphone where each app needed its own charger.
Well, that'd be a nightmare.
Right. But with the standard hitch, it was like suddenly farmers could download any tool they needed.
A plow, a seeder,
Yeah.
a backhoe. It's brilliant.
It really was. And it opened the door for even more inventions.
So it's also a lesson in collaboration, right? Working together toward a common goal.
Absolutely. Like an open source project for farm equipment.
I love that. And there's another important takeaway here. Never stop improving.
Right.
The three-point hitch hasn't stayed the same all these years.
Yeah.
It's constantly evolving to meet the needs of farmers.
That's so true. It's easy to get complacent when you've created something groundbreaking, but innovation never stops.
And that applies to everything, right? Not just farming technology business, even personal growth. You always got to be willing to adapt and evolve.
Couldn't agree more.
So in a way, the three-point hitch isn't just a piece of farm equipment. It's a metaphor for progress.
That's a great way to put it. It shows what humans can achieve when we think creatively and work together.
Well said. I think we can all agree that the humble three-point hitch is a true unsung hero of modern agriculture.
Absolutely.
And it proves that simple ideas can change the world.
They really can.
And for our listeners out there, remember what we talked about earlier. What other hidden inventions are shaping our lives without us even realizing it?
That's a great question to think about.
Keep those minds curious, folks. It's been a fascinating journey exploring the ins and outs of the three-point hitch with you all.
It really has. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, keep exploring and keep diving deep.